Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bunbun, and this is our House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 6 reaction and review. We're going to talk about the small folk. We're going to talk about Seasmoke, who, congratulations,
Mhm.
you are now moving up the rank of favorite dragon. You are
Aw.
number 2 now behind Moon Dancer. Seasmoke went
Aw.
for the Emmy nomination for Best Dragon over the course of this episode. No, there's a lot of, I think, important stuff. There's no like huge epic Rook's Rest 2.0 in this episode, but I think there's a lot of chess pieces that sort of like moved around in an interesting way.
Yeah, and there's the big kiss that happened with White Worm and Rhaenyra. Seeing a lot of people talking about that online.
Yeah,
Let us know how you guys feel about this kiss.
I will say, I think it maybe took a lot of people by surprise. As far as I know, I don't believe that this is something that they took from the books. It sort of kind of came organically out of what they were doing on the show from
Mhm.
a chemistry standpoint, from a relationship standpoint. Do I understand it? Yes. And who am I to stand in the way of potential love? Now, from a standpoint of Rhaenyra being the queen, having to be careful about protecting herself and her future, is this also an enormous risk?
Well, that's the thing about it is there was a real vulnerability in that moment. It wasn't like they're in this really romantic moment that was happening. It
Mm,
was a really empowering moment where, White Worm was really, gassing her up and being like,
yeah,
listen, like, I'm new here to the council and everything that's going on, but I really believe in you. You are the queen. For X, Y, and Z, you are the queen. And this is why I believe in you as much as I do. And it was something that Rhaenyra really needed to hear at that moment. The rest of her council is just falling apart. Everyone's just like, Daemon's gonna win this. If you don't have Daemon, you win nothing. And she's just like, oh man, like everyone's kind of forgetting that I'm the queen and
yeah.
I'm the person that's in charge here, except for this one person who, basically just met me and really believes in me. And I think it was this very, very vulnerable moment, something that Rhaenyra really needed to hear at that time. Did she need to go in for a hug as the queen, as somebody who's under the queen? No, but she's still a person, right? And
Yeah.
she's a vulnerable person that doesn't feel like she has anybody. Her husband's off doing whatever. She doesn't have that intimacy in any type of relationship. So, is it surprising that it has come in this form of somebody who's like, I really believe in you? No, it's not surprising.
The other question that sort of comes out of this, you guys can let us know about this as well, is just, is this something that's actually going to continue, or is this kiss sort of a one-off? Is it something that Rhaenyra needed in that moment? Absolutely, it certainly feels that way. The challenge moving forward is obviously you've got a lot of people around who are going to be sort of putting their eyes and ears on everything. Do you want people to find out, especially because here we have Daemon, who, technically is Rhaenyra's husband,
Yep.
despite, everything that is going on. If there's one thing we also know about Daemon, it is that he is a prideful man. He is a man who thinks that he must be in charge. He still thinks he should be king. I don't exactly think he's going to be that excited about the idea of Rhaenyra having a relationship with somebody else.
No, I'm sure he's not going to be that happy about it. I mean, is that something Damon would do to her? Probably.
Yep.
It was a little bit surprising though to see that Rhaenyra would do that to him at this point where she doesn't really know where their relationship is, but she's in a really vulnerable state right now, and she's human and
Yeah.
she's lonely and on her, she's feeling very vulnerable right now. It's not surprising that she did it. And I think I've seen people being really hard on her online over it. And I think, she's a person, she's going through it.
Yeah.
I'm not here to be like, it's okay to like cheat on your husband. That's not the stance that I'm sitting on right now. But for this character in this moment, I think that she needed to do what she needed to do to actually be able to go forward as queen and win this. She was almost out.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll admit that a part of my perception is just skewed because I like Dwight Wormasaria as a character. I just think she's interesting. There's not
Mhm.
really anyone else on the show
Mm-mm.
right now that is like her, and
No.
so I'm just happy to see her on screen, even in this relationship standpoint that I feel like is probably doomed. It's still interesting to watch that, but we will dive into so much more from this deep and intricate hour plus of TV. But before we do, hit that subscribe button because we do have more to come on
Mhm.
House of the Dragon. Still a couple more episodes this season. Also, we have previews. We don't want you to miss those out either.
Absolutely. And also, if you want to help support us further, you can join our Patreon for just $5 and
Mhm.
help support us
Yes.
here at the channel. It also gives you an opportunity to vote in some of our polls on some of the shows that we cover here at the channel, and you get to have a bit of a say in what we cover here. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined our Patreon.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so sticking with Rhaenyra, let's talk about what happened with Seasmoke and
Uh,
how Seasmoke just burnt up the first potential rider. This idea was always going to be very risky. I mean, Rhaenyra's kind of like, we need riders. We have all these dragons and we could have riders. So let's find somebody who's like, 1/8 maybe removed Targaryen and see if it works out. And Seasmoke, not having it, not having it.
I loved every single thing about this storyline. Is it something that we needed to spend as much time in this episode on? I actually think we kind of did because I just think it's a fascinating concept of how does a dragon choose their rider? And
Yeah.
even when, Sir Stefan was going up the sea smoke and he was just sort of doing his whole I will tame you. I will do. And then he's like, I've got it. And I'm sitting here being like, no, no,
No,
you
no, you
don't.
don't.
Sea Smoke is about to just like totally pwn you. And this is all going to be over. And it was just so fun because I didn't know for sure that Sir Stefan was going to take a massive L, but I kind of felt like it was coming. So it was sort of watching this slow rolling disaster happen. And Sea Smoke deciding to burn Sir Stefan in the way in which it happened, it was pretty graphic, but it was also really, really cool. There's no other way to explain it. I loved all of the Sea Smoke stuff in this episode, and I even love where we ended, where I don't think there's that much ambiguity here as to who Sea Smoke has chosen to be their rider.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see more of this going forward, and we'll have a preview up for you guys about Adam. And now he's riding Seasmoke, and Rhaenyra's been told, oh, by the way,
Yeah,
there's a dragon out there with a rider on it, so you might want to figure out what's going on with that. And it was nice to see her actually get on her dragon and leave, because that's been my biggest issue this season
yeah.
in general with Rhaenyra, is she's felt like she's been sort of just trapped, where
Mhm.
everyone's telling her, you can't leave, you can't do this, you can't do that, and she's the queen. And it is, everyone keeping her there and not letting her do anything is weakening her in front of the eyes of her own council and the people around her, that she's someone that has to be protected, but she's also the queen. So for her to get on her own dragon and go out and be like, I'm going to see what this is all about, that it's the way to go.
Yeah, good for you, Rhaenyra. Take a little bit of just ambition, matters into your own hands, figure all of this out. I really like that Adam ends up being this person just because they frame it really well in this episode, where here is Adam, this person who's struggling to really find a sense of, legitimacy around
Mhm.
House Velaryon and Corlys, and he's struggling to find sort of his greater place in the world. And this is not something he asked for. He was not exactly just roaming around the Seven Kingdoms being like, I wish I had a dragon. But then ultimately Seasmoke turns up and Seasmoke basically does the I choose you Pokemon moment here. And
Oh,
I just think that they clearly are a little bit both outcasts in a way
yeah.
because, Seasmoke has not been one of the primary dragons as of late. Adam is somebody who has not been taken as seriously perhaps as he should be. And I
Mhm.
think they can have a partnership moving forward here. And I don't think there's any question that Adam is going to gravitate more towards Team Black because of, his family and all the various little just tendrils they go out from it. But how all that happens, I think is going to be fascinating.
Very fascinating with Corlys and then him going to be seeing Adam on that team. I mean, how is that all going to play out?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really fun. I mean, we also on the dragon front, we learned that there is another dragon roaming around out there through
Mhm.
this particularly interesting Rhaena scene where Rhaena is just sort of like, you didn't really mention anything about this dragon before. It's just sort of out there. I don't need to put on a tinfoil hat or anything. That this is probably Ulf's dragon. I don't know exactly how Ulf gets from point A to point B because he's still just complaining in King's Landing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that it turns out to be Rhaenyra's dragon. I know that she's tried to
Mhm.
be a dragon rider and it hasn't taken yet, but maybe this is her dragon.
She's certainly closer to it than Ulf is at the
Yeah.
moment. Like, how many appearances has Ulf had? And has Ulf done anything different in any of these appearances other than to sit around, drink, and complain?
All right, let's talk about people who are sitting around and complaining. Let's talk about Daemon.
Oh no.
Okay, so it seemed like he was
Yeah.
finally ready to leave Harrenhal. He was like, I am done with this. I'm like, me too. Let's get out of here and go and do something else. But he gets stopped by Alice, who's like, give it 2 days. And he actually asked more for her counsel, which is really one of the first times he's got a bit deeper with her. And she's like, just give it 2 days. We'll figure it out. What's going on? It'll be all okay.
Okay. I am about to climb up on Hypocrite Hill and just wave Damon's white flag that he wove in the stepstones in season 1 because I have complained relentlessly about this storyline and how it felt like, okay, we're dragging too much. I want to see Daemon back with Rhaenyra, and none of that has changed. And the same goes for, okay, Alice is clearly manipulating him. But
Mm-hmm.
the moment that I saw my guy Patty Considine back on the
I
show, I was
know.
just so happy. I was like, I don't care anymore that you're wasting all this time just because I I think Patty was the best performer in all of season 1. I think
Yeah.
his character is so unbelievably good. Just to have a little bit more of his relationship with Daemon to sort of inform further why Daemon is who he is. I thought this was really valuable.
Yeah, it really was. I loved seeing Patty back.
Yeah, I mean, this to me is so much better than whatever weirdness you were doing with Damon and his mom, or even Damon and young Rhaenyra earlier on, where it felt like you were just sort of, I don't know, trying to get some sort of reaction out of all of us as viewers. But I don't actually think anything valuable came from that stuff. I think with Viserys, it did because Viserys is the reason why Damon has such a chip on his shoulder, because Damon is sort of wandering around and being like, why not me? Why was I not the king? Why was this guy the king? Or then why was Rhaenyra the queen? Why was she the heir over? And I think so much of how he sort of thinks, his mindset is all wrapped around his brother.
And things are starting to move forward with him being able to gather his own troops. The Tullys were someone that he just wasn't able to really break through. And Alice says, wait 2 days. And 2 days later, the eldest Tully's gone. And now this younger Tully that he had originally been talking to, where he was like, well, I can't really make any decisions at this point,
Yeah.
can now make all the decisions. So it seems like they're going to be able to work something out. The doors are opening for Daemon.
I found it pretty interesting how they basically needed to hand over all of the information to Damon on a silver platter and sort
Yeah.
of explain, we did everything we could to help him. We even sent over Alice, our, most talented
So
healer.
helpful.
So yeah, okay, so she obviously killed him, and that's where we are at this point. I still have all these questions about what's Alice really doing here? Because yeah, in getting rid of this particular Tully, are you trying to bring things together for Daemon? Sure, but at the same time, Rhaenyra's still out there. The Greens are still out there. It's not exactly like you're giving Daemon some unchecked ability to claim the Seven Kingdoms here.
Yeah, it's feeling either like she is gassing him up to be king so that maybe she can be part of this council and find her own spot, or she's kind of working hand in hand with the Greens and with Larys to break up Rhaenyra and Daemon so that it can weaken that side. And it has.
I'm just still so annoyed at Daemon. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Him just like parading around Harrenhal and talking about how he's the king. It's like, have you read anything from a Raven over the past few weeks? Do you know what's going on outside of this miserable castle? You were acting like you were in charge, and really you were just leading a poor, dilapidated castle that doesn't even have its own money. Its money's off with Larys and King's Landing. You are actually achieving nothing, Daemon. Do you just have on so many blinders you don't want to see it?
Okay, let's talk about my guy Aemon.
Oh boy. Okay.
Because he's making some moves, and he's making some, in my opinion, correct moves. I mean, he's trying to break up the blockade. He's trying to get food in. Town folk are revolting, obviously. They're angry, they're hungry. All of that is going on. But he's doing what he can to try to deal with the blockade. There's not a lot of ways that he can really deal with it. And he seemingly wants to bring in this group of people who don't have the greatest reputation to go and deal with it, because they're another crew of ships that would be able to go out to sea and actually deal with this. But Alicent, of course, has concerns where she's like, okay, but then what's to stop them from turning on you and turning on King's Landing? And Aemon's just like, well, what's your suggestion then? Like, there isn't a lot of options. This particular fight is out at sea. So what do you want to do about it? And at this point, Aemon's just had enough, because every time Alicent is at the council, she's always undermining him in some kind of way, whether she's right or wrong or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not helping Aemond in a way to look strong in that position where his mommy's on the council undermining him all the time. So he boots her from the council, which I think is the right thing to do at this point. She's not really helping him. Okay. And I know that, like, she's kind of like, oh, when are you going to let, these horrible things that happened in your past, move on? When are you going to move on? It's like, okay, it's not about that. It is about having this group of people around him that need to respect him and listen to him. Yes, he knows he's taking a risk by bringing in these people to deal with the blockade, but he needs to deal with the blockade. And it's a risk that he's willing to take to be able to get food in.
I think all of this is just so deliciously complicated, because I think there's going to be people who are upset about Alicent being booted from the council. And I get that, because Alicent's my favorite person on Team Green. And there's a part of me that's always wanting to root for Alicent, but I'm trying to think of this in ways that I would better understand as a basketball fan. So Aemond is basically, he's playing on the team, but his coach is this parent, apparently. Like, that's sort of the way in which the show has set this up. And if your coach is your parent, or in this case, your mom, all your other teammates, everybody else is just going to think, okay, well, you're getting all this time on the court because your parent's the coach. Like, nobody's going to take you as seriously. And I know this is kind of a mixed metaphor here, but I think ultimately he needs to be able to stand on his own 2 feet. He needs to be able to figure out, how can I make decisions without people second guessing it, without people thinking I need my mother's approval. And so I understand the move from that standpoint with Aemond. I think Aemond is very, very smart. I think he's doing a lot that he can at this particular point in his life, given that this power was sort of just thrown upon him. The only criticism
thrown upon him,
as in his dragon.
As in he took it.
His dragon threw Aegon a very long place away, and he nearly killed him. Okay, no. I think this is the only thing I would say. If I am an advisor to Aemond on his court here, you need a little bit of an intelligence operation. You need something. You need like the Westeros version of MI6, or just like somebody who can really give you a tenor of what's going on the street, and consistently how people are feeling about you. Maybe that way you can kind of get a sense of, oh, something might be happening. Here's how I can better prepare for X, Y, or Z. Obviously, there's no way he could predict exactly what was going on with Rhaenyra, but it just sort of feels like you've got all of this different infrastructure worked in here. It's it's good to have some spies sometimes. And, the closest thing you got to a spy on your side right now is Larys, and Larys sucks. And he's not loyal to you at all.
No, he's not loyal to anybody. I mean, Rhaenyra's move in bringing in the food and having that sort of then permeate through the town folk to be like, oh man,
Yeah.
Rhaenyra still cares about us, even though, she's not here with us. She still cares about us. She's still trying to help us, and not really understanding that she's blocking the food from coming in. So it's like, okay, yeah, she's helping you because she decides, because she's stopping you from being able to get food in the first place. So okay, yeah, great Rhaenyra out there helping us out. It's tough because they're in town and they don't have a bigger picture of what is going on out on the sea and why they're not really getting food. But that is sort of Aemond and Team Green's biggest issue, is they don't have any spies. And on Team Black, they have spies. So they are able to kind of know what's going on and be able to kind of get in and out of King's Landing and make these kinds of moves, where Team Green just doesn't have that. And that's one of the other reasons why, when Aemond was like, Mom, you're off the council now.
Yeah.
Because you're not actually bringing anything to the table. You're just telling me what I'm doing wrong, but you're not offering me any solutions on what to do that's right. So I need somebody who's going to be at the table, my hand, who's going to really help me out. And steps in Larys to be like, I could be that person for you. And he's like, oh, absolutely not. But you can go and get my grandfather, Otto, because he absolutely can help me. He served 3 kings. He's my family. I can trust him. Why would I trust you? The most I'll trust you to do is go get him for me. I was like, yes, that's the correct move. Why would Aemond ever bring you in?
I've never been more proud of Aemon in my life than I was in that moment where he's just telling.
He's very smart.
Yeah, always go tell Larys to pound sand, because the only power Larys has is the ability to try to latch onto somebody and sort of leech away a little bit of influence. So, as a result of all of this, what do we see Larys ultimately do in this episode? He goes over to Aegon, who is still alive, but is very much not the same Aegon he used to be, and he's just trying to gas him up and encourage him and be like, we got this. People, they're gonna underestimate us. It's like, okay, great, Larys, congratulations, you can get through to Aegon. What's Aegon going to do right now? It's not exactly like a lot of people are listening to him.
Yeah, Aegon is a desperate ploy at this point. Like, yeah, Larys can be like, okay, people take advantage of us because of what we look like and what's going on, but so we got to stick together, and I could take advantage of you too, basically, which is what exactly happens. Yes. Aegon's like, help me, and Larys is like, absolutely, I will help you. Of course I will help you. But if Aegon can't get back up on his feet, this doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's just the thing. And I don't know if Aegon can really get back on his feet at this point. And if he does, that then presents a really big danger to him, because Aemon knows that if Aegon starts wandering around and telling, the full truth, the full story about what happened at Rook's Rest, that's very, very bad for him. And so there's this bubbling tension underneath all of it, that one of them inevitably is probably going to have the other one killed in order to continue to hold a certain measure of power, because otherwise it's always going to be over their shoulder.
Yeah, the biggest issue right now, of course, is that Aegon's not strong enough to be able to deal with his brother. I mean, Aemon went to go see him and was like, basically, what do you remember? Yeah. And he's like, nothing, I remember nothing. Because, he knows what his brother's capable of. He's in a vulnerable position. He can't even get out of bed. And of course, Aemon's like, good, that's great. And kiss him on the head and be like, you're going to be okay, man. We're going to get through this together, brotherly love, and then leaves. And I know Aegon he's in such a vulnerable spot that he's got Aemon basically being like, yeah, everything's all right? We good, right? Yeah, we good, right? It's all good, right? And then you got Larys in here also being like, yeah, people like us, we got to stick together. I'll help you. I'll manipulate you. Okay, please help me. Like, he is totally in the worst position, Aegon. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I don't know how exactly he gets a full measure of power back at this point. It's just really, unless Aemon does something catastrophically bad.
No, tinfoil hat. I'm putting on my tinfoil hat. Larys is going to attempt or try to dethrone Aemon and get Aegon back up on the throne, and he will be the mouthpiece. I think that's where he's going with that. If he can find a way to take down Aemon in some sort of way, gain Aegon's trust enough that he can be like, don't worry, yeah, you're bedridden, I'll help you. You just whisper to me what you want, and I'll make that happen. And that way, Larys is king.
I have two words for you, Laris, if you attempt this. Good and luck, because you are going to need it because Aemond is very smart. He's very resourceful. He also has a gigantic dragon that could destroy you at any given moment. I don't know how. I'm not trying to be just like hyperbolic here. I just don't know how you can pull that off, even if you are Laris. Like, you really have to catch Aemond asleep at the wheel, and I don't think that's Aemond. He's not perfect, but he seems like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and I think from his upbringing, he trusts really no one. Like, and I think that that's a huge advantage that he has with his council and with himself, is that if you've got people on your council like Larys, and you know that Larys is Larys, where we saw that at the table where Aemon was like, why would I ever take you as the hand? This is a joke. Go and get my family, sort of thing. Because he has that wall, he'll be able to listen a little more logically to, okay, this sounds like a plan that could work. This sounds like a plan that doesn't work. He's not emotionally invested in anything. And that, I think, really helps keep him, ahead of things. So if Larys was going to try to poison him or, push him
Yeah.
over the side or whatever, Larys would have to be close enough to him for Aemon to actually eat the poison or let him be near him at a balcony or whatever. And he doesn't trust him. So how does he get close to him? He doesn't.
Yeah, I can't see it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I will gladly eat all of the metaphorical crow in the world on this. It's just I have a hard time viewing it. Now, I'm just gonna also say this. I feel bad for Alicent, and I know she's caused a lot of her own problems.
Yes, she
I'm
has.
not saying that she is just blameless in all of
No,
this,
she's not.
but she's she tried to do what she thought was right for the crown,
Yeah.
for the realm.
Yep.
She really believed what Viserys told her, and she
Yes.
doesn't believe it anymore, but everything is way too far gone. She doesn't have any influence with their kids anymore. She also had the misfortune of being with Kristen Cole. That's not great. I just feel
She also seems to have no influence with Otto. I mean, Aemon is like, get me Otto. And she's been writing him and writing him and
yeah.
writing him and nothing in return. Where's Otto?
Yeah, I mean, she's basically gone to this point where the only comfort that she's finding is her brother telling her that Daron, who has never even been on the show, who could be cast as anybody. I mean,
He's a happy loot player.
yeah, he's a happy loot player. And so, with that in mind, it's just okay. So, we're basically at this point now where Alicent is relying on stories about a happy loot player who we've never met, who could be played by any actor in the world. And that's going to be enough for her. This is a really sad position for this character to be in now.
Yeah, it is, but at the same time, I mean, some of it is a purposeful her own fault. Some of it is she believed what she believed. Viserys was talking about Aegon, why they're alone, they're a married couple in bed. Like, why would she not think that it's her actual son? And she's been taking on a lot of guilt where she's
Mhm.
looking now at her two sons that are here and being like, is this my fault that they're like this? Is it the environment that they're like this? Could it even be Viserys of why they're like this? He was not really involved with them. He didn't spend any time with them. He didn't
Yeah.
help raise them. Like, having an absent father who's also the king is not that helpful of growing up to be, well-adjusted young men, right? So she's really sitting in her feelings about that to be like, okay, here's this happy loot player over here that didn't have Viserys around and didn't have me around, and he's happy and doing well and kind. And then here are these other two sons that aren't doing that well, and my daughter who just wants to play with bugs all day. Like, something hasn't worked out over here.
Yeah, and I think kind of getting to the bottom of this is going to be a really interesting story. I'm sure we'll talk more about it in the preview, but just to me, I like this episode more than I liked episode 5 just because I think it's more balanced. I like the Daemon stuff more. We've said this before. This show doesn't need to have, epic sword on sword action and dragons burning a ton of people, even
No.
if Seasmoke was awesome. It's just, this stuff, the relationships, the back and forth, like this is what makes House of the Dragon really, really great. If there is one small beef I have
Mhm.
with this episode, I still have no understanding of how time works within the Game of Thrones universe. Because remember Sir Alfred basically being like, I'm going to go to Harrenhal. I will
Yep.
find. Where the frick is Sir Alfred
I
at this point?
know.
He's just like Alpha in the wind. Like, there's
Well,
nothing going on there.
it's gonna take him a while to get there.
I just
There's
listen.
no Game of Thrones teleportation
know.
going on in this show.
Varys can go to another continent in like an episode, and it's just like an episode later. Nobody's mentioning Sir Alfred at all. But
Yeah.
all right, now that's small potatoes, grand scheme of things. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Be sure to hit that subscribe button.
Yep.
More House of the Dragon coverage coming. Also, support our Patreon, $5 a month. That really goes a long way to help us be
Yep.
able to continue to make this content. And we'll see you guys here next time.